How often can a person donate blood?
Blood is one of the most easily donated tissues. According to the American Red Cross, a person in good health who weighs at least 110 pounds, 50 kilograms, can donate blood every 56 days. Platelets may be donated every 7 days up to 24 times per year. Plasma may be donated every 28 days up to 13 times per year.
What is the cleanest fossil fuel?
Natural gas, composed primarily of methane, is the cleanest of all fossil fuels, producing only carbon dioxide and water vapor when it is burned. Coal and oil produce higher levels of harmful emissions, including nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide when burned. Coal creates the most carbon dioxide when it is burned. Natural gas emits 25 to 50% less carbon dioxide than either oil or coal for each unit of energy produced.
When does frost form?
A frost is a crystalline deposit of small thin ice crystals formed on objects that are at freezing or below freezing temperatures. This phenomenon occurs when atmospheric water vapor condenses directly into ice without first becoming a liquid. This process is called sublimation. Usually frost appears on clear, calm nights, especially during early autumn when the air above the earth is quite moist. Permafrost is permanently frozen ground that never thaws out completely.
What is a banyan tree?
The banyan tree, Ficus bengalensis, native to tropical regions of Southeast Asia, is a member of the genus Ficus. It is a magnificent evergreen that can reach 100 feet, 30.48 meters, in height. As the massive limbs spread horizontally, the tree sends down roots that develop into secondary, pillar-like supporting trunks. Over a period of years a single tree may spread to occupy as much as 2,000 feet. 610 meters, around its periphery.
What is a mole in chemistry?
A mole, a fundamental measuring unit for the amount of a substance, refers to either a gram atomic weight or a gram molecular weight of a substance. It is the quantity of a substance that contains 6.02 x 1023 atoms. Molecules, or formula units of that substance. This number is called Avogadro's number or constant after Amadeo Avogadro. 1776 to 1856, who is considered to be one of the founders of physical science. Mole Day was organized by the National Mole Day Foundation to promote an awareness and enthusiasm for chemistry. It is celebrated each year on October 23.
What is the Big Crunch theory?
According to the Big Crunch theory, at some point in the very distant future, all matter will reverse direction and crunch back into the single point from which it began. Two other theories predict the future of the universe, the Big Bohr theory and the plateau theory. The Big Bohr theory, named because it has nothing exciting to describe, claims that all matter will continue to move away from all other matter and the universe will expand forever. According to the plateau theory, expansion of the universe will slow to the point where it will nearly cease, at which time the universe will reach a plateau and remain essentially the same.
What is the record for the greatest snowfall in the United States?
The record for the most snow in a single storm is 189 inches, 480 centimeters. At Mount Shasta Ski Bowl in California from February 13 to 19, 1959. For the most snow in a 24-hour day. The record goes to Silver Lake, Colorado, on April 14 to 15, 1921, with 76 inches, 193 centimeters, of snow. The year record goes to Paradise, Mount Rainier, in Washington, with 1,224.5 inches. 3,110 centimeters, from February 19, 1971, to February 18, 1972. The highest average annual snowfall is 241 inches, 612 centimeters, for Blue Canyon, California. In March 1911, Tamarack, California, had the deepest snow accumulation over 37.5 feet, 11.4 meters.
What is the origin of the word sequoia?
The word sequoia was proposed by Austrian botanist Stephen Endlicher. 1804 to 1849, to commemorate the 18th century Cherokee leader Sequoia, c. 1770 to 1843, remembered for developing an 83-letter alphabet for the Cherokee language. Pine's white pine, 5 needles in each bundle. Needles soft and 3 to 5 inches long. Cones can be 4 to 8 inches long. Scotch pine, 2 needles in each bundle. Needles are stiff, yellow-green, 1.53 inches long. Cones are 2 to 5 inches long. Spruce white spruce. Dark green needles are rigid, but not prickly, grow from all sides of the twig and are less than an inch long. Cones are 1 to 2.5 inches long and hang downward. Blue spruce, needles are about an inch long, silvery blue. Very stiff and prickly, needles grow from all sides of the branch. Cones are 3.5 inches long. Fir balsam fir. Needles are flat, 1 to 1.5 inches long and arranged in pairs opposite each other. Cones are upright, cylindrical, and 2 to 4 inches long. Fraser fir, looks like a balsam but needles are smaller and more rounded. Douglas fir single needles, 1 to 1.5 inches long and very soft. Cone scales have bristles that stick out. An easy way to identify the various trees is to gently reach out and shake hands with a branch, remembering that the pine needles come in packages, spruce are sharp and single, and firs are flat and friendly.
What is the Doppler effect?
The Austrian physicist Christian Doppler, 1803 to 1853, in 1842 explained the phenomenon of the apparent change in wavelength of radiation such as sound or light emitted either by a moving body, source, or by the moving receiver. The frequency of the wavelengths increases and the wavelength becomes shorter as the moving source approaches, producing high-pitched sounds and bluish light, called blue shift. Likewise, as the source recedes from the receiver, the frequency of the wavelength 6 decreases. The sound is pitched lower, and light appears reddish, called red shift. This Doppler effect is commonly demonstrated by the whistle of an approaching train or the roar of a jet aircraft. There are three differences between acoustical, sound, and optical, light, Doppler effects. The optical frequency change is not dependent on what is moving the source or observer, nor is it affected by the medium through which the waves are moving, but acoustical frequency is affected by such conditions. Optical frequency changes are affected if the source or observer moves at right angles to the line connecting the source and observer. Observed acoustical changes are not affected in such a situation. Applications of the Doppler phenomenon include the Doppler radar and the measurement by astronomers of the motion and direction of celestial bodies.
What are isomers?
Isomers are compounds with the same molecular formula but different structures due to the different arrangement of the atoms within the molecules. Structural isomers have atoms connected in different ways. Geometric isomers differ in their symmetry about a double bond. Optical isomers are mirror images of each other.
How does a mastodon differ from a mammoth?
Although the words are sometimes used interchangeably, the mammoth and the mastodon were two different animals. The mastodon seems to have appeared first, while a side branch may have led to the mammoth. The mastodon lived in Africa, Europe, Asia, and North and South America. It appeared in the Oligocene epoch, 25 to 38 million years ago, and survived until less than 1 million years ago. It stood a maximum of 10 feet, 3 meters, tall and was covered with dense woolly hair. Its tusks were aligned straight forward and were nearly parallel to each other. The mammoth evolved less than 2 million years ago and died out about 10,000 years ago. It lived in North America, Europe, and Asia. Like the mastodon, the mammoth was covered with dense, woolly hair, with a long, coarse layer of outer hair to protect it from the cold. It was somewhat larger than the mastodon, standing 9 to 15 feet, 2.7 to 4.5 meters. The mammoth's tusks tended to spiral outward, then up. The gradual warming of Earth's climate and the change in environment were probably primary factors in the animal's extinction. Early man killed many of them as well, perhaps hastening the process.
What causes the sensation of pins and needles when your foot falls asleep?
Local pressure, such as crossing or sitting on your legs, may temporarily compress a nerve, removing sensory and motor function in your foot. When the local pressure is removed, the familiar feeling of pins and needles is felt as the nerve endings become reactivated.
How salty is seawater?
Seawater is, on average, 3.3 to 3.7% salt. The amount of salt varies from place to place. In areas where large quantities of fresh water are supplied by melting ice, rivers, or rainfall, such as the Arctic or Antarctic, the level of salinity is lower. Areas such as the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea have salt contents over 4.2%. If all the salt in the ocean were dried, it would form a mass of solid salt the size of Africa. Most of the ocean salt comes from processes of dissolving and leaking from the solid earth over hundreds of millions of years. Some is the result of salty volcanic rock that flows up from a giant rift that runs through all the ocean's basins.
How are diamonds weighed?
The basic unit is a carat, which is set at 200 milligrams, 0.00704 ounces or 1/142 of an avoirdupois ounce. A well-cut, round diamond of 1 carat measures almost exactly 0.25 inch, 6.3 millimeters, in diameter. Another unit commonly used is the point, which is 1/100th of a carat. A stone of 1 carat weighs 100 points. Carat as a unit of weight should not be confused with the term Carat used to indicate purity of the gold into which gems are mounted.
What is Indian summer?
The term Indian summer dates back to at least 1778. The term may relate to the way the Native Americans availed themselves of the nice weather to increase their winter food supplies. It refers to a period of pleasant, dry, warm days in the middle to late autumn, usually after the first killing frost.
How did the electrical unit watt originate?
Named for the Scottish engineer and inventor James Watt. 1736 to 1819, the watt is used to measure electric power. An electric device uses 1 watt when 1 volt of electric current drives 1 ampere of current through it.
In coal mining, what is meant by damp?
Damp is a poisonous or explosive gas in a mine. The most common type of damp is fire damp, also known as methane. White damp is carbon monoxide. Black damp or choke damp is a mixture of nitrogen and carbon dioxide formed by mine fires and explosions of fire damp in mines. Black damp extinguishes fire and suffocates its victims.
What is the hardest substance in the body?
Tooth enamel is the hardest substance in the body. It is composed of 96% mineral salts and 4% organic matter and water.
What is the food guidance system?
The food guidance system, My Pyramid, is an educational tool to help individuals implement the dietary guidelines for Americans published jointly by the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. The current system maintains the shape of the familiar food guide pyramid, but it is personalized for age, sex, and individual physical activity levels. The new pyramid symbol in My Pyramid features 6 vertical color bands representing the 5 food groups and oils. Each food group narrows toward the top to indicate moderation. The stylized symbol of a person climbing the steps is to encourage physical activity.
How did humans evolve?
Evolution of the Homo lineage of modern humans, Homo sapiens, has been proposed to originate from a hunter of nearly 5 feet, 1.5 meters, tall, Homo habilis. who is wide 95 li presumed to have evolved from an Australopithecine ancestor. Near the beginning of the Pleistocene epoch, 2 million years ago. Homo habilis is thought to have transformed into Homo erectus, Java man, who used fire and possessed culture. Middle Pleistocene populations of Homo erectus are said to show steady evolution toward the anatomy of Homo sapiens. Neanderthals, Cro-Magnons, and modern humans, 120,000 to 40,000 years ago. Pre-modern Homo sapiens built huts and made clothing.
What was the first medical college in the United States?
The College of Philadelphia Department of Medicine, now the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, was established on May 3, 1765. The first commencement was held June 21, 1768. When medical diplomas were presented to the 10 members of the graduating class.
What are synthetic fuels?
Synthetic fuels, commonly called synfuels, are gaseous and liquid fuels produced synthetically from coal and oil shale. Basically, coal is converted to gaseous or liquid forms in coal-based synfuels. These are easier to transport and burn more cleanly than coal itself. Synthetic natural gas is also produced from coal. Disadvantages of these processes are that they require a large amount of water, and the new fuels have 30 to 40% less fuel content than pure coal. Synfuels from oil shale are produced by extracting the oils from the rocky base. Gasoline and kerosene can be produced from oil shale. Synfuel may also be obtained from biomass from human and animal waste. The waste is converted to methane by the action of anaerobic bacteria in a digester.
How can the amount of lead in tap water be reduced in an older house having lead-containing pipes?
The easiest way is to let the tap run until the water becomes very cold before using it for human consumption. By letting the tap run, water that has been in the lead-containing pipes for a while is flushed out. Also, cold water, being less corrosive than warm, contains less lead from the pipes. Lead, Pb, accumulates in the blood, bones, and soft tissues of the body, as well as the kidneys, nervous system, and blood-forming organs. Excessive exposure to lead can cause seizures, mental retardation, and behavior disorders. Infants and children are particularly susceptible to low doses of lead and suffer from nervous system damage. Another source of lead poisoning is old, flaking lead paint. Lead oxide and other lead compounds were added to paints before 1950 to make the paint shinier and more durable. Improperly glazed pottery can be a source of poisoning, too. Acidic liquids such as tea, coffee, wine, and juice can break down the glazes so that the lead can leak out of the pottery. The lead is ingested little by little over a period of time. People can also be exposed to lead in the air. Lead gasoline additives, non-ferrous smelters, and battery plants are the most significant contributors of atmospheric lead emissions.
Who invented the telescope?
Hans Lippershey, c. 1570 to 1619, a German-Dutch lens grinder and spectacle maker, is generally credited with inventing the telescope in 1608 because he was the first scientist to apply for a patent. Two other inventors, Zacharias Janssen and Jacob Matthias, also developed telescopes. Modern historians consider Lippershey and Janssen as the two likely candidates for the title of inventor of the telescope, with Lippershey possessing the strongest claim. Lippershey used his telescope for observing grounded objects from a distance. In 1609, Galileo also developed his own refractor telescope for astronomical studies. Although small by today's standards, the telescope enabled Galileo to observe the Milky Way and to identify blemishes on the Moon's surface as craters.
Which states have geothermal power plants?
Geothermal power plants in the United States produced 14.86 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity, or 0.4% of the total U.S. electricity generation. 6 states: California, Nevada, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, and Utah all have geothermal power plants. The 34 geothermal power plants in California produce almost 90% of all geothermal generated electricity in the United States.
What is the difference between the degrees Doctor of Dental Surgery, DDS, and Doctor of Medical Dentistry, DMD?
The title depends entirely on the school's preference in terminology. The degrees are equivalent.
What is a light year?
A light year is a measure of distance, not time. It is the distance that light, which travels in a vacuum at the rate of 186,282 miles, 299,792 kilometers per second, can travel in a year, 365.25 days. This is equal to 5.87 trillion miles, 9.46 trillion kilometers.
When was the first oil well in the United States drilled?
The Drake Well at Titusville, Pennsylvania, was completed on August 28, 1859, some sources list the date as August 27. The driller, William Uncle Billy Smith, d. 1890, went down 69.5 feet, 21 meters, to find oil for Edwin L. Drake, 1819 to 1880, the well's operator. Within 15 years, Pennsylvania oil field production reached over 10,360 pound. 163 kilogram barrels a year.
How do fleas jump so far?
The jumping power of fleas comes both from strong leg muscles and from pads of a rubber-like protein called resilin. The resilin is located above the flea's hind legs. To jump, the flea crouches, squeezing the resilin, and then it relaxes certain muscles. Stored energy from the resilin works like a spring, launching the flea. A flea can jump well both vertically and horizontally. Some species can jump 150 times their own length. To match that record, a human would have to spring over the length of 2.25 football fields or the height of a 100-story building in a single bound. The common flea, Pulex irritans, has been known to jump 13 inches. 33 centimeters, in length and 7.25 inches, 18.4 centimeters, in height.
What is urea and where is it produced?
During the process of metabolizing proteins, the body produces ammonia. Ammonia combines with carbon dioxide to form urea. The human body can tolerate 100,000 times more urea than ammonia. It is the most abundant organic waste produced in the body and it is eliminated by the kidneys. Humans generate about 0.75 ounces, 21 grams, of urea each day.
What is a hoodoo?
A hoodoo is a fanciful name for a grotesque rock pinnacle or pedestal. Usually of sandstone, that is the result of weathering in a semi-arid region. An outstanding example of a hoodoo occurs in the Wasatch Formation at Bryce Canyon, Utah.
Who invented the computer mouse?
A computer mouse is a handheld input device that, when rolled across a flat surface, causes a cursor to move in a corresponding way on a display screen. A prototype mouse was part of an input console demonstrated by Douglas C. Engelhardt, 1925, in 1968 at the Fall Joint Computer Conference in San Francisco. Popularized in 1984 by the Macintosh from Apple Computer, the mouse was the result of 15 years devoted to exploring ways to make communicating with computers simpler and more flexible. The physical appearance of the small box with the dangling, tail-like wire suggested the name of mouse. In recent years, the mouse has evolved into other shapes and forms. One type is the wireless or tailless mouse, which does not have a cord to connect to the computer. Wireless mice use radio signals or infrared to connect to the computer.
How large can hailstones become?
The average hailstone is about 0.25 inch, 0.64 centimeter, in diameter. However, hailstones weighing up to 7.5 pounds, 3.4 kilograms, are reported to have fallen in Hyderabad state in India in 1939. Although scientists think these huge hailstones may be several stones that partly melted and stuck together. On April 14, 1986, hailstones weighing 2.5 pounds, 1 kilogram, were reported to have fallen in the Gopalganj district of Bangladesh. The largest hailstone ever recorded in the United States fell in Coffeyville, Kansas. On September 3, 1970. It measured 5.57 inches, 14.15 centimeters, in diameter and weighed 1.67 pounds, 0.75 kilogram. Hail is precipitation consisting of balls of ice. Hailstones usually are made of concentric, or onion-like layers of ice alternating with partially melted and refrozen snow, structured around a tiny central core. It is formed in cumulonimbus, or thunderclouds, when freezing water and ice cling to small particles in the air, such as dust. The winds in the cloud blow the particles through zones of different temperatures, causing them to accumulate additional layers of ice and melting snow and to increase in size.
Was Polaris always the North Star?
Earth has had several North Stars. Earth slowly wobbles on its axis as it spins. This motion is called precession. Earth traces a circle in the sky over a period of 26,000 years. In pharaonic times the North Star was Thuban, today it is Polaris, around 14,000 CE it will be Vega.
From where do frankincense and myrrh originate?
Frankincense is an aromatic gum resin obtained by tapping the trunks of trees belonging to the genus Boswellia. The milky resin hardens when exposed to the air and forms irregular lumps, the form in which it is usually marketed. Also called olibanum, frankincense is used in pharmaceuticals. as a perfume, as a fixative, and in fumigants and incense. Myrrh comes from a tree of the genus Commiphora, a native of Arabia and Northeast Africa. It too is a resin obtained from the tree trunk and is used in pharmaceuticals, perfumes, and toothpaste.
Why do lunar eclipses happen?
A lunar eclipse occurs only during a full moon when the moon is on one side of Earth. The sun is on the opposite side, and all three bodies are aligned in the same plane. In this alignment, Earth blocks the sun's rays to cast a shadow on the moon. In a total lunar eclipse, the moon seems to disappear from the sky when the whole moon passes through the umbra, or total shadow, created by Earth. A total lunar eclipse may last up to 1 hour and 40 minutes. If only part of the moon enters the umbra, a partial eclipse occurs. A penumbral eclipse takes place if all or part of the moon passes through the penumbra. Partial shadow or shade, without touching the umbra. It is difficult to detect this type of eclipse from Earth. From the moon one could see that Earth blocked only part of the sun.
What is a pedigree?
A pedigree is a genetic history of a family, which shows the inheritance of traits through several generations. Information that can be obtained from a pedigree includes birth order, sex of children, twins, marriages, deaths, stillbirths, and pattern of inheritance of specific genetic traits.
What is the oldest continuously published scientific journal?
The Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society of London. First published a few months after the first issue of the journal d'Escavans. On March 6, 1665, is the oldest, continuously published scientific journal.
What plant produces the largest seed cones?
The largest seed cones are produced by cycads. They may be up to 1 yard, 1 meter, in length and weigh more than 3.3 pounds, 15 kilograms.
If the sap of the poison ivy plant touches the skin, will a rash develop?
Studies show that 85% of the population will develop an allergic reaction if exposed to poison ivy. But this sensitivity varies with each individual according to circumstance, age, genetics, and previous exposure. The poison comes mainly from the leaves whose allergens touch the skin. A red rash with itching and burning will develop. and skin blisters will usually develop within 6 hours to several days after exposure. Washing the affected area thoroughly with mild soap within 5 minutes of exposure can be effective. Sponging with alcohol and applying a soothing and drying lotion, such as calamine lotion, is the prescribed treatment for light cases. If the affected area is large, fever, headache, and generalized body weakness may develop. For severe reactions, a physician should be consulted to prescribe a corticosteroid drug. Clothing that touched the plants should also be washed.
Is there a relationship between the size of the root system and the size of the shoot system?
Growing plants maintain a balance between the size of the root system, the surface area available for the absorption of water and minerals, and the shoot system, the photosynthesizing surface. The total water and mineral absorbing surface area in young seedlings usually far exceeds the photosynthesizing surface area. As the plant ages, the root-to-shoot ratio decreases. Additionally, if the root system is damaged, reducing the water and mineral absorbing surface area. Shoot growth is reduced by lack of water, minerals, and root-produced hormones. Similarly, reducing the size of the shoot system limits root growth by decreasing the availability of carbohydrates and shoot-produced hormones to the roots.
What is a supernova?
A supernova is the death explosion of a massive star. Immediately after the explosion, the brightness of the star can outshine the entire galaxy, followed by a gradual fading. A supernova is a fairly rare event. The last supernova observed in our galaxy was in 1604. In February 1987. Supernova 1987A appeared in the Large Magellanic Cloud, a nearby galaxy.
Do all animals have red blood?
The color of blood is related to the compounds that transport oxygen. Hemoglobin, containing iron, is red and is found in all vertebrates. Animals having a backbone, and a few invertebrates, animals lacking a backbone. Annelids, segmented worms, have either a green pigment, chlorocruorin, or a red pigment, hemerythrin. Some crustaceans, arthropods having divided bodies and generally having gills, have a blue pigment, hemocyanin, in their blood.
What freshwater mammal is venomous?
The male duck-billed platypus, Ornithorhynchus anatinus, has venomous spurs located on its hind legs. When threatened, the animal will drive them into the skin of a potential enemy, inflicting a painful sting. The venom this action releases is relatively mild and generally not harmful to humans.
Who is considered the founder of systematic astronomy?
The Greek scientist Hipparchus, c. 190 to 120 BCE, is considered to be the father of systematic astronomy. He measured as accurately as possible the directions of objects in the sky. He compiled the first catalogue of stars, containing about 850 entries, and designated each star's celestial coordinates, indicating its position in the sky. Hipparchus also divided the stars according to their apparent brightness or magnitudes.
What is the origin of land plants?
Many scientists believe land plants evolved from green algae. Green algae, especially the carpites, share a number of biochemical and metabolic traits with plants. Both contain the same photosynthetic pigment scaridines, xanthophylls, as well as chlorophylls A and B. Cellulose is a major component of the cell walls of plants and algae, and both store their excess carbohydrates as starch. In addition, some aspects of cell division, particularly the formation of new cross walls, only occurs in plants and certain carpites, such as species of the genera Cerera and Colechid.
Why is the sky blue?
The sunlight interacting with Earth's atmosphere makes the sky blue. In outer space, the astronauts see blackness because outer space has no atmosphere. Sunlight consists of light waves of varying wavelengths, each of which is seen as a different color. The minute particles of matter and molecules of air in the atmosphere intercept and scatter the white light of the sun. A larger portion of the blue color in white light is scattered, more so than any other color because the blue wavelengths are the shortest. When the size of atmospheric particles are smaller than the wavelengths of the colors, selective scattering occurs. The particles only scatter one color and the atmosphere will appear to be that color. Blue wavelengths especially are affected, bouncing off the air particles to become visible. This is why the sun looks yellow. Yellow equals white minus blue. At sunset, the sky changes color because as the sun drops to the horizon, sunlight has more atmosphere to pass through and loses more of its blue wavelengths. The orange and red, having the longer wavelengths and making up more of sunlight at this distance, are most likely to be scattered by the air particles.
What is an organ system?
An organ system is a group of organs working together to perform a vital body function. There are 12 major organ systems in the human body.
What is unique about the water lily Victoria amazonica?
T is very big. Found only on the Amazon River. This water lily has leaves that can reach up to 6 feet, 1.8 meters, in diameter. In a single season, a plant will produce 40 to 50 leaves. The leaves are very buoyant, capable of supporting the weight of a small child. Mature leaves may be able to support 100 pounds, 45 kilograms, if evenly distributed on the leaf. The flowers of Victoria amazonica reach up to 12 inches, 30 centimeters, in height. The flowers open at dusk and are only open on 2 successive nights. During the first evening, the flower is white. They close during the day and the next evening the flower has changed its color to a pink or purplish red. Each plant only has one flower at a time. And after the second evening the flower closes up and sinks below the surface of the water.
What is red dog?
Red dog is the residue from burned coal dumps. The dumps are composed of waste products incidental to coal mining. Under pressure in these waste dumps, the waste frequently ignites from spontaneous combustion, producing a red-colored ash, which is used for driveways, parking lots, and roads.
What are the male reproductive organs and structures?
The male reproductive organs and structures are the testes, a duct system that includes the epididymis and the vas deferens. The accessory glands, including the seminal vesicles and prostate gland, and the penis. The testes are the male gonads. They produce the male reproductive cells called sperm.
Why did dinosaurs become extinct?
There are many theories as to why dinosaurs disappeared from Earth about 65 million years ago. Scientists debate whether dinosaurs became extinct gradually or all at once. The gradualists believe that the dinosaur population steadily declined at the end of Cretaceous period. Numerous reasons have been proposed for this. Some claim the dinosaurs' extinction was caused by biological changes that made them less competitive with other organisms, especially the mammals that were just beginning to appear. Overpopulation has been argued, as has the theory that mammals ate too many dinosaur eggs for the animals to reproduce themselves. Others believe that disease, everything from rickets to constipation, wiped them out. Changes in climate, continental drift, volcanic eruptions, and shifts in Earth's axis, orbit, and / or magnetic field have also been held responsible. The catastrophists argue that a single disastrous event caused the extinction not only of the dinosaurs but also of a large number of other species that coexisted with them. In 1980, American physicist Luis Alvarez, 1911 to 1988, and his geologist son, Walter Alvarez, 1940, proposed that a large comet or meteoroid struck Earth 65 million years ago. They pointed out that there is a high concentration of the element iridium in the sediments at the boundary between the Cretaceous and Tertiary periods. Iridium is rare on Earth, so the only source of such a large amount of it had to be outer space. This iridium anomaly has since been discovered at over 50 sites around the world. In 1990, tiny glass fragments, which could have been caused by the extreme heat of an impact, were identified in Haiti. A 110-mile, 177-kilometer, wide crater in the Yucatan Peninsula, long covered by sediments, has been dated to 64.98 million years ago, making it a leading candidate for the site of this impact. A hit by a large extraterrestrial object, perhaps as much as 6 miles. 9.3 kilometers, wide, would have had a catastrophic effect upon the world's climate. Huge amounts of dust and debris would have been thrown into the atmosphere, reducing the amount of sunlight reaching the surface. Heat from the blast may also have caused large forest fires, which would have added smoke and ash to the air. Lack of sunlight would kill off plants and have a domino-like effect on other organisms in the food chain, including the dinosaurs. It is possible that the reason for the dinosaurs' extinction may have been a combination of both theories. The dinosaurs may have been gradually declining, for whatever reason. The impact of a large object from space merely delivered the final devastating blow. The fact that dinosaurs became extinct has been cited as proof of their inferiority and that they were evolutionary failures. However, these animals flourished for 150 million years. By comparison, the earliest ancestors of humanity appeared only about 3 million years ago. Humans have a long way to go before they can claim the same sort of success as the dinosaurs.
How large is a nanometer?
A nanometer equals 1/1000th of a meter. A sheet of paper is about 100,000 nanometers thick. As a comparison, a single-walled carbon nanotube, measuring 1 nanometer in diameter, is 100,000 times smaller than a single strand of human hair, which measures 100 micrometers in diameter.
What is a weed?
A plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered. James Russell Lowell, 1819–1891, wrote in 1848, "A weed is no more than a flower in disguise." Ella Wheeler Wilcox, 1850–1919, a Wisconsin poet, more famous for her expression "laugh." and the world laughs with you, weep, and you weep alone. Wrote in her poem The Weed that a weed is but an unloved flower. Finally, Shakespeare, 1564–1616, wrote in Richard III, great weeds do grow apace.
How are chromosomes assembled?
Chromosomes are assembled on a scaffold of proteins, called hist-1s, that allow DNA to be tightly packed. There are 5 major types of hist-1s, all of which have a positive charge. The positive charges of the hist-1s attract the negative charges on the phosphates of DNA, thus holding the DNA in contact with the hist-1s. These thicker strands of DNA and proteins are called chromatin. Chromatin is then packed to form the familiar structure of a chromosome. During mitosis, chromosomes acquire characteristic shapes that allow them to be counted and identified.
What is a close encounter of the third kind?
UFO expert J. Alan Hynek, 1910–1986, developed the following scale to describe encounters with extraterrestrial beings or vessels. Close encounter of the first kind, sighting of a UFO at close range with no other physical evidence. Close encounter of the second kind, sighting of a UFO at close range, but with some kind of proof, such as a photograph, or an artifact from a UFO. Close encounter of the third kind, sighting of an actual extraterrestrial being. Close encounter of the fourth kind, abduction by an extraterrestrial spacecraft.
How long was the Mir space station in space?
The first component, a 20.4-ton core module of the Mir space station, was launched in February 1986. The core module served as the living and working quarters, including the communications and command center of the space station. 5 more modules were launched and attached to ports on the core module over the next 10 years. Mir had self-contained oxygen, power, and water generation capabilities, allowing cosmonauts and astronauts to spend extended periods of time in space. Scientific investigations aboard Mir included space technology experiments, life science and biological research, astrophysics, and material processing tests. Much of the life science and biological research focused on the effects of microgravity on humans and flora and fauna. Since some of the astronauts spent many months at a time in Mir, it was possible to study the physiological differences in long and short duration missions. Space technology studies investigated various materials for space use, and the effects of the low Earth orbit environment on various materials. The Mir space station was deorbited on March 23, 2001 after more than 86,000 orbits around Earth. The space station broke into several large pieces and thousands of smaller ones over the Pacific Ocean. There were no injuries.
Is the Dead Sea really dead?
Because the Dead Sea, on the boundary between Israel and Jordan, is the lowest body of water on Earth's surface, any water that flows into it has no outflow. It is called dead because its extreme salinity makes impossible any animal or vegetable life except bacteria. Fish introduced into the sea by the Jordan River or by smaller streams die instantly. The only plant life consists primarily of halophytes, plants that grow in salty or alkaline soil. The concentration of salt increases toward the bottom of the lake. The water also has such a high density that bathers float on the surface easily.
What type of cell is found in nerve tissue?
Neurons are specialized cells that produce and conduct impulses, or nerve signals. Neurons consist of a cell body, which contains a nucleus and two types of cytoplasmic extensions, dendrites and axons. Dendrites are thin, highly branched extensions that receive signals. Axons are tubular extensions that transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body, often to another neuron. Nerve tissue also has supporting cells, called neuroglia or glial cells, which nourish the neurons, insulate the dendrites and axons, and promote quicker transmission of signals.
What are the major parts of the urinary system?
The major parts of the urinary system are the kidneys, the urinary bladder, two ureters, and the urethra. Each component of the urinary system has a unique function. Urine is manufactured in the kidneys. The urinary bladder serves as a temporary storage reservoir for urine. The ureters transport urine from the kidney to the bladder, while the urethra transports urine from the bladder to the outside of the body.
What are the two subsystems of the nervous system?
The nervous system is divided into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord, while the peripheral nervous system consists of all the nerve tissue in the body, excluding the brain and spinal cord. Communication between the central nervous system and the rest of the body is via the peripheral nervous system. Specialized cells of the peripheral nervous system allow communication between the two systems.
Do the continents move?
In 1912, a German geologist, Alfred Lothar Wegener, 1880 to 1930, theorized that the continents had drifted or floated apart to their present locations and that once all the continents had been a single land mass near Antarctica called Pangaea, from the Greek word meaning all earth. Pangaea then broke apart some 200 million years ago into two major continents called Laurasia and Gondwanaland. These two continents continued drifting and separating until the continents evolved into their present shapes and positions. Wegener's theory was discounted, but it has since been found that the continents do move sideways, not drift, at an estimated inch, 19 millimeters, annually because of the action of plate tectonics. American geologist William Maurice Ewing, 1906 to 1974, and Harry Hammond Hess, 1906 to 1969, proposed that Earth's crust is not a solid mass, but composed of 8 major and 7 minor plates that can move apart, slide by each other, collide, or override each other. Where these plates meet are major areas of mountain building, earthquakes, and volcanoes.
(105) How long is a solar cycle?
The solar cycle is the periodic change in the number of sunspots. The cycle is taken as the interval between successive minima and is about 11.1 years long. During an entire cycle, solar flares, sunspots, and other magnetic phenomena move from intense activity to relative calm and back again. The solar cycle is one area of study to be carried out by up to 10 ATLAS space missions designed to probe the chemistry and physics of the atmosphere. These studies of the solar cycle will yield a more detailed picture of Earth's atmosphere and its response to changes in the Sun.
When was the term antibiotic first used?
Antibiotics are chemical products or derivatives of certain organisms that inhibit the growth of or destroy other organisms. The term antibiotic, from the Greek anti, meaning against, and biosis, meaning life, refers to its purpose in destroying a life form. In 1889 Paul Wheelman, 1861 to 1932, used the term antibiosis to describe bacterial antagonism. He had isolated piocyanin, which inhibited the growth of bacteria in test tubes but was too lethal to be used in disease therapy. It was not until the mid-1940s that Selman Waxman, 1888 to 1973, used the term antibiotic to describe a compound that had therapeutic effects against disease.
How much blood does the average-sized adult human have?
An adult man has 5.3 to 6.4 quarts, or 1.5 gallons, 5 to 6 liters, of blood. while an adult woman has 4.5 to 5.3 quarts, or 1.2 gallons, 4 to 5 liters. Differences are due to the sex of the individual, body size, fluid and electrolyte concentrations, and amount of body fat.
How is DNA unzipped?
DNA is unzipped during its replication process. The two strands of the double helix are separated and a new complementary DNA strand is synthesized from the parent strands. Also, during DNA transcription, one DNA strand, known as the template strand, is transcribed, copied, into an RNA strand. In order for the two strands of DNA to separate, the hydrogen bonds between the nitrogen bases must be broken. DNA helicase breaks the bonds. However, the enzyme does not actually unwind the DNA. There are special proteins that first separate the DNA strands at a specific site on the chromosome. These are called initiator proteins.
What has been the impact of zebra mussels on North American waterways?
Zebra mussels, Dreissena polymorpha, are black and white striped bivalve mollusks. They are hard-shelled species that adhere to hard surfaces with byssal threads. They were probably introduced to North America in 1985 or 1986 via a discharge of a foreign ship's ballast water into Lake St. Clair. They have spread throughout the Great Lakes, the Mississippi River, and as far east as the Hudson River. High densities of zebra mussels have been found in the intakes, pipes, and heat exchangers of waterways throughout the world. They can clog the water intakes of power plants, industrial sites, and public drinking water systems. Foul boat hulls and engine cooling water systems, and disrupt aquatic ecosystems. Water processing facilities must be cleaned manually to rid the systems of the mussels. Zebra mussels are a threat to surface water resources because they reproduce quickly, have free-swimming larvae and rapid growth, lack competitors for space or food, and have no predators.
What is the Pythagorean theorem?
In a right triangle, one where two of the sides meet in a 90-degree angle, the hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. The Pythagorean theorem, also known as the rule of Pythagoras, states that the square of the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides, h2 equals a2 plus b2. If the lengths of the sides are, h equals 5 inches, a equals 4 inches, and b equals 3 inches, then h equals a2 plus b2, equals 42 plus 32, equals 16 plus 9, equals 25 equals 5. The theorem is named for the Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras. c. 580–c. 500 BCE. Pythagoras is credited with the theory of the functional significance of numbers in the objective world and numerical theories of musical pitch. As he left no writings, the Pythagorean theorem may actually have been formulated by one of his disciples.